Welcome to my channel. This is JC Rock and Metal Reviews. My name is John, and today I have a different type of video for you today. We'll be talking about bands that I used to listen to. So before I begin, if you haven't subscribed and you're new to this channel, please subscribe. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and a lot more. So in this video, we'll be talking about a few bands I used to like when I was younger, but for some reason or another, I kind of lost interest in these bands and I stopped listening to them. So this was kind of an experiment because I gave a listen to about 6 albums from bands that I haven't listened to in a long time, but these were bands that I absolutely loved at one point in my life. So the first band I want to talk about is Bon Jovi. So this is a band I completely lost touch with. They even released an album last year and I wasn't even interested in listening to it. The album I want to talk about is called Slippery When Wet, and I remember this was one of my favorite albums back in the late 80s. I gave it a listen again for the first time in many years. I don't know how long it was since the last time I listened to this, but I was kind of surprised. It has a straightforward hair metal sound. I kind of forgot that they were once a metal band, you know. The songs did have a lot of keyboards in it. Kind of made it sound a little more like an arena rock band, but I was also surprised that some of the songs did have these sections with keyboards that kind of reminded me of Deep Purple. I thought that was pretty cool. Now the album has hits You Give Love a Bad Name, Living on a Prayer, and Wanted Dead or Alive. I also listened to the next album called New Jersey, and I think that's probably a better album. That one had lots of hits on it, such as Lay Your Hands on Me, Bad Medicine, and I'll Be There For You. And one thing I thought that was cool is that a lot of their songs were songs that told stories, and it was almost metal versions of Bruce Springsteen songs, and Bruce is also another New Jersey native, so it kind of makes sense. But I thought it was kind of cool because they had a lot of these storytelling songs. Now this is a band that probably won't go back to these albums, maybe every once in a while, but I don't really think it's a band that, you know, I'm really into, but it was kind of fun, you know, just reminiscing about the past. So the next band that we'll talk about is the band U2. Now, I used to listen to them a lot in the mid 80s, before I discovered heavier metal music. Now this band I lost interest in sometime around the early 90s. So today I listened to their first album called Boy, and it was actually not that bad. It had more of a raw garage rock sound, I guess you can say. I did like some of the guitar playing by The Edge. You know, I like the bass sound. It sounded really good, and the album did have a few good songs like I Will Follow. And I also listened to their second album called October, and that one I felt it was a little weaker than the first one. The first few songs were good, like Gloria and I Fall Down, but I did start to get bored towards the middle of the album. Now this is a band I tried to get into recently because they released an album that was an iTunes exclusive, and it was a free digital download called Songs of Innocence. But I tried to get into that album, but I found it very boring. So this is a band I probably won't go back to often. I might give some of their pre-90s albums a listen, but other than that, I probably won't go back to this band that often. So the next band I listened to was Warrant. And I listened to the album Cherry Pie, and this is another band, I used to like them a lot. I kind of listened to them again. I listened to their debut album a while back because I did a video from the year 1989. And it was funny, I listened to that album back to back with Skid Row's debut album, and I thought they were kind of the same type of band, but no, Skid Row, it's a completely different band. I do recommend going back and listening to Skid Row. That's a band that I do like now. But this band Warrant, I don't really like, even though Cherry Pie is probably their best album. They do experiment a little bit. They have a little bit of some bluegrass, some pretty cool acoustic ballads. So this is probably their best. I know they have another album called Dog Eat Dog, and that was an album that I basically never owned back then. And I never really listened to it, but supposedly this was more of a heavier, grungier album, and I don't know, one day I'll listen to it and maybe I'll do a video on it, but you know, that one I didn't listen to today. But anyway, this is another band that I probably won't go back to. I do like some of the ballads, but you know, I probably won't listen to this band that much anymore. Next is the band Poison. So I was a very big Poison fan when I was younger, and I probably held them in the same regard as bands like Metallica and Iron Maiden. But this is another band I just lost interest over time. I had their first 4 albums. I listened to them like very often. You know, the album I listened to today was called Open Up and Say Ah, and I also listened to Flesh and Blood. So I like the ballad Every Rose Has Its Thorn. That was a song that I have listened to over the years. It's a song that I play on the acoustic guitar. And you know, I like that one. The album in general had like a kind of like a Motley Crue type of sound. Maybe like that Dr. Feelgood era, like a blues-based hard rock sound. I listened to, like I said, the next album, Flesh and Blood. I thought that might have been a little better album. They did start to experiment like into more of like a blues-based direction, kind of like what the band Cinderella did. And they had another album, I didn't listen to it today, but it was called Native Tongue. And I do remember that one being like a lot more like blues-based. But this band, again, I enjoyed it a little. It was pretty cool reminiscing, but I probably like won't go back to them. So the next album I listened to was the debut album by the band BULLETBOYS. Now, this one kind of like sparked my interest because 2 reasons. Gary from Physical Format, he recently showed this in one of his Vinyl Finds videos. And I did a video about money, and I talked about the song For the Love of Money, and they have a cover of this song on this album. And that song is not really that great. I actually like the original a lot better. This album had Smooth Up In Ya. That was a really good song, that one I liked. And the band was like a little heavier than I remember. It does have like a nice hard rock sound. And I remember the band released another album called Freak Show that I don't remember if I ever bought it or not, but the cover did look familiar. And this is a band that, you know, I listened to the debut. It's a short album. It's a little over half hour. It was okay, but I probably won't go back to it again. Now, the last album I listened to was Stick It To Ya by the band Slaughter. Now, this one I actually liked a little, and I might give it a few more listens because it was better than I remember. It had the big hit called Up All Night, and it had the ballad Fly to the Angels, which is a really great like hair metal ballad, but it does have like this kind of like a classic rock feel, some nice acoustic guitars, almost like a Rolling Stones kind of feel. My only complaint is that the vocals are kind of like a little high-pitched. They kind of get annoying at times, but the songs are very well written. I like this album a lot. There's a track called She Wants More, and it's kind of a fun track. It's talking about a woman that she basically spends like all of this guy's money. And it was a decent album. So I did like this one, and probably out of all the bands I talked about, this one I might go back to. And that's it. So basically what I learned from my experiment is that, you know, there are going to be bands that you used to like, but you will lose interest in. And you probably like won't go back to them. So let me know if there are any bands that you used to listen to, but like never went back to. Kind of be interesting, you know, to know if there are any of those bands. And another cool video topic would be bands that I didn't like when I was younger, but I got into late, but it's another topic. I will probably do that in the future someday. That's it. Coming up next this week, a couple anniversary reviews. Alice Cooper Goes to Hell, Alice Cooper's Hey Stupid, and Def Leppard's High and Dry. Those are all celebrating anniversaries, which will be the 45th, the 40th, and the 40th, I don't know, something like that. I'll look it up. And that's it. Please check out my in-video links. See you in the next one.